Jim's worst traits are found in malignant narcissism. Amongst the descriptions that ring true for him, I believe, are sociopathy, pathological lying, paranoia, deep-seated rage, sadism, and more. Some of those we talked about in the other episodes about dissociative identity disorder. That's what happens and transpires in childhood, early childhood, when extreme trauma, very, very violent extreme trauma takes place, including RSA. So this malignant narcissism is in the adult victim. This is something that is rare, but it can transpire in the adult who comes from that kind of a childhood. In fact, it absolutely does. That's where its roots begin. What is malignant narcissism? Okay. It's also, if I say MN, it's the same thing. It's a form of ego pathology and can be identified by some key features. Listen up, because these might ring true for someone you're currently in a relationship with. And if it is, if you hear something familiar, ding, 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 time to reassess. Narcissistic personality disorder also has an acronym. I'll call it NPD. Conspicuous criminal behavior committed with a degree of sadism, legitimized egocentric sadism or violence expressed through their profession. Remember, Jim was a cop. Super egotistical behavior, heightened paranoia, and narcissistic rage. And for a moment, I'm going to touch on the egocentric word I said. That's from my pool talk video for part 32D. Egocentricism is something that narcissists, people with narcissistic personality disorder have. It's an internal framework. It's something inside of them, a structure they create that they believe is how their beliefs, their how they operate, and they also, these extend outward in their behavior and attitudes towards those in their orbit. They even have internal expectations of others in their orbit, not just themselves, but it's their playbook. Okay, that's the egocentric is what it means. Okay, so this narcissistic rage I want to touch on for a minute because I just watched a Netflix documentary on Mackenzie Shirella, the nasty little piece of work who crashed her car into a building. I'm sorry, I'm still angry about it. It's only been 2 days. It's really terrible. I believe she is a malignant narcissist. I believe that what she was experiencing was narcissistic rage. And by the time you get done with all the videos on malignant narcissism, I think there'll be this one and one more. I think you might agree. I don't know. Form your own opinion. But when I was watching the video, I just kept seeing a sign, beep, beep, in my head. She's a malignant narcissist. Watch that special. I recommend it, that documentary. Okay, so in reading this list of traits, and what I read you was just a partial list of traits for the MN, it's not hard to imagine why so many malignant narcissists go into law enforcement, any kind of a career like that where they have authoritarian rule, autonomy, and leverage and control. Politicians too, kind of. Okay, so I'm going to talk about contributing traits in the MN that fuel their violent tendencies. Okay, there's 3 I'm going to list. Number 1 is paranoia. So already present in your malignant narcissist is a suspicion of others and the propensity to participate in criminal behavior and violent criminal behavior in the case of Jim. So paranoia is important because it's considered the very center, the heart of the malignant narcissist because it nurtures. It is the fuel for their egocentric molten hatred. It's like a perpetual source of projecting animosity onto others. They have contempt for others and they like to express it. The worst form of that expression is sadism. And there's a very special form of it unique only to the malignant narcissist. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, the third thing, sadism was the second thing, paranoia the first thing. The third thing is impersonation. Impersonation is another form of projection the MN does, and it's that of an adopted persona. So in attempting to exhibit every facet, appearance, dress, mannerisms, ethos, even the way they walk, this is how deep they go. They immerse themselves, not unlike how a method actor takes on a role. So this example, this impersonation can be based on real life or fiction, influenced by any source, literature, media, or popular culture. So do any of you watched part 22B where I talked about Jim, his ridiculous, ugly black cane, and the stupid fake limp that went with it? Go check out 22B. Okay, so also Jim would do this impersonation. I saw it. I personally experienced the sadism as well. He uh, poisoned me for 9 years, low key toxic, to keep me sick and at home. But then when he decided to do me in, he got a little more serious with it. So that definitely qualifies as sadism. He was so paranoid. He told all our kids, don't tell anyone that who he works for. Don't say the department, nothing. Never mention it. It was drilled into all of our brains. And then the impersonation we'll get to. Jim loved Westerns. In the days after watching one of his favorites, Jim would seem to emulate certain mannerisms and characteristics of people he admires most. Robert Duvall was his favorite actor in Westerns. He loved him. He loved him in Open Range as Boss Spearman, and he loved him as Gus McCrae in Lonesome Dove. So Jim would adopt one of Boss Spearman's facial expressions, perhaps his movement, mannerisms, his speech patterns, even to say something like, if that's what you're really set on doing, then just go ahead with it. Don't say I didn't warn you. In reality, Jim had more in common with the cowardly, disgusting, despicable, corrupt Sheriff Poole in Open Range and Jake Spoon in Lonesome Dove. Oh, also, I don't know if you've ever seen in like the gas station convenience stores, the beef jerky in the little round plastic tin. It's yellow, and there's shredded beef jerky, just like chewing tobacco. He would go buy those every camping trip we ever took. And also sometimes after we'd watch a Western, he'd go get that. He'd even keep it in his back pocket like such a jackass. And he'd put it in his lip, shredded jerky, like he's a cowboy. All right, now we're going to talk about contrast between malignant narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, and psychopathy. The major difference between MN and NPD is one thing, it's sadism. So this may sound familiar because of my video Pool Talk Part 31D, but this bears repeating. Sadism is at the core of the malignant narcissist. There's a special form of sadism that only comes up in malignant narcissists. It's called egocentric sadism. Egocentric meaning it comes from their internal framework of their personal belief system, their ethos, their rules. So it's rooted in early childhood extreme trauma, but the MN will wield egocentric sadism to inflict terrible, terrible violence, unencumbered by any remorse. And they will even find enjoyment in the harm and the torture and suffering they cause others. I guess I should just have another acronym, ESS, egocentric sadism. Core component of the MN. And like I said, it's born of a traumatized and adversely modified brain due to early childhood's extreme harm, extreme harm. Okay, fictional characters who exemplify this trait can be found in villains Joffrey Baratheon in Game of Thrones, the Joker in Batman, Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. And in recent years, in recent news, Giselle Pellico was a victim of extreme crime. It was I don't know how you say this on TikTok, but it was a crime against women, very violent. How did he get caught? He was caught upskirt videoing women in a mall. The police arrested him, looked through his phone, and they found all kinds of evidence of those things. And guess how long he did that to her? For a decade. For a decade. So he was holding on to evidence from all of that under the same roof he lived with his wife. So he was arrested, I think, at age 71. Convicted, sentenced to a very long time in prison where he'll die, his rotten little self. Plus, many of her attackers got convicted as well, and they're in prison for a very long time. Go France! Go France. Tough on crime. Okay, moving on to the major difference between the MN and psychopathy. So, okay, the facade, very important, the facade. So Jim had split personality disorder. I can name 4 right off the bat. I'm sure there's many more. The facade is part of that, how they have a forward-facing life and how each of these personas has one. It's their ability to build a facade. It's a carefully crafted image, usually based on a person or an ideal that they admire. He was obsessed with Western history. He was obsessed with mountain men, survivalism. He had just shelves of books on this, plus my Kindle's packed. You should see my Kindle, especially in the months leading up to his attempt on me to unalive me with poison. He was studying a lot of off-grid living. The malignant narcissist devotion to a grandiose, idealized facade separates them from the garden variety psychopath. Here's why. The malignant narcissist loves to take on a persona because then they have total control over it. They can control who they are and who they emulate. The psychopath would absolutely never do that. They would recoil at the thought of impersonating anyone or anything because they're pathologically mistrustful of most, if not all, outside influences. Okay, so Jim's entire identity, besides, he lived a secret lives. He lived 3 secret lives, 2, 3, I think 3, I believe 3. And he had how many, I don't know how many personalities, but his entire identity, his forward-facing identity, who I knew him for 39 years, I knew him. I was his wife. This is what defined him, in my opinion. None were authentic. All were artificial impersonations. All were something he concocted and manipulated for his own purpose. His image as a good Mormon man, a returned missionary even, as a faithful married man, and as a good cop. But it was his career in law enforcement that was his most favored and dominant facade. When that went away, when he fully retired from law enforcement, that means no bailiff, where you have a gun and a badge, nothing, just complete retirement. That was when we went to Utah in March of 2018. He unraveled quickly like a Temu sweater. We got to Utah on St. Patty's Day 2018, and I was seeing a psychic by November of that year. I was like so freaked out. I began to feel like I was married to a stranger. Okay, I'm going to break here for part 32E. Please come back for 32E when we talk about the commonalities with malignant narcissism and psychopathy, and I finish answering some questions I posed in part 32A. I'm Sarah Wilder. This is Surviving the Man I Married, and thank you for being here.